Hills Philmreels. I've been making top 10 lists since 2014. I started then, and just a Facebook status. It was just 14 of my favorite movies that year. Each year I continued on. 14 of 2014, 15 of 2015, etc. And I built it all the way up to 2020, a monumental, amazing year that it was going to be. Well, then the coronavirus happened and I almost didn't even get 20 movies that year. But I don't want to make a whole 20 list. We don't have time for that. We're going to do just my top 10, which is really difficult. It is really difficult to do. I've been used to, even at the beginning, to do over 10, and now I have to cut just down to 10. It's like, oh my gosh. But without further ado, let us go ahead and start the list.
10!
There were so many 4-star films. I had to go with the one that I thought was the most fun, and that was The Harder They Fall. It is a all African American ensemble Western. I love Westerns. There just hasn't been one done like this before. Like, it just has an incredibly unique style to it. It's got Idris Elba. It's got Regina King. The music was awesome. The fight scenes were great, super well choreographed, and there was a nice, like, emotional gun punch right at the end.
9!
This one had to be in my top 10 list of this year because I watched it 3 times. Emma Stone led Cruella. Cruella is by far the second best live action remake that Disney's done. Skyrocketed, just blew past the competition. I loved it. I loved the style. I was like, how are you going to make a movie about this? And they just did it well. I mean, Emma Stone just carried herself. Emma Thompson was a solid villain. The people that they got to play Jasper and Horace were funny as heck. Other than the intro, the first act of the movie, with her childhood, other than that going like on about 5 to 8 minutes too long for me, I think it's a really, really solid movie.
8!
All right, look, you can't look me in the eyes and tell me that I'm not the number one demographic for this movie right here. Free Guy. Here's the deal. This movie had no business being that good. It was laugh out loud funny. I've watched this movie twice, once in theaters where my dad and I were the ones laughing the loudest, and then I made my wife watch it because there's the whole Christoph Beck Paperman score that they reuse for their Love score, and Amanda and I used that in our wedding, and so obviously there was a little sweet moment there for me and Amanda. But she loved it, and she doesn't play video games. My dad loved it. My dad doesn't play video games. My dad walked out of the theater when we went to see it, and he said, that was just like Young Frankenstein. It was just a spoof. It was a spoof on video games. And he's like, you didn't even have to fully understand all the video game stuff to laugh at the jokes. Like, there are a lot of people who were like, this is the death of cinema. And I was like, calm down. Number one, there's always been trashy movies. There are plenty of trashy books out there, trashy romance novels, and yet people still keep making great books. People are still going to keep making great movies. If you don't think this is one of them, that's fine. There's going to be another one. Don't hate on people who love this movie.
7!
This one was a late entry into my top 10 list. I only watched it about 2 weeks ago, but I'm so glad I did. King Richard. That... Whew, hold on. Just give me a second. I'm just all in on Will Smith. I think this could be a career best for him looking back. Like, I mean, of course I love Men in Black. Of course I love Independence Day. Come on. The list goes on and on. Insert your favorite Will Smith movie here. But there's something else about when he taps in that dramatic zone like he did in Pursuit of Happiness, which was probably my number one up to this point, and then he just went boom, like next level. And I was learning things. I was looking up the stats of the Williams sisters. I was looking up more about him. Like, it just caused me to learn more, and that I feel like that's a good movie. It's a good movie, like especially based off real people, should cause you to be interested in their life. The girls that they got to play the Williams sisters were absolutely fantastic. Really well cast movie, delightful score, and yeah, just a lot of heart. This is the family movie, the family drama of the year.
6.
The Quiet Place 2. One, I think the first Quiet Place is astounding, and it's just barely better than this one. John Krasinski has a bright future ahead of him in directing. I would really love to see him do more directing going forward. And I mean, he will always be Jim, but he won't end up being a Kramer, where that's the only thing he's famous for. He will now be famous for directing amazing movies. Quiet Place 2 was everything I wanted and more. I mean, this was a really well shot film, and freaking they did a really good job bringing John Krasinski into the movie without it being like super self-important, or it made sense to the overall plot. And then Cillian Murphy then to basically fill in that gap for the rest of the movie, bringing his character into this new ever-growing world, was really solid choice. And I'm excited to see if they make a part 3.
5.
Is ShangChi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I thought this was a brilliant new beginning to the Marvel Universe. But you got a great cast. I thought Tony did a great job as the villain. I thought Awkwafina was funny. I'm excited to have her in it. I like that Wong was in it. Yeah, and it was great because it's like an encapsulated movie. Like, just like Iron Man, just like Captain America. All those movies like were contained while still setting up the next one. So was Shang-Chi. Then you had like Eternals, which gave you like 5 billion different endings. And it was like all cliffhangers. Shang-Chi definitely had some of the best fighting choreography ever in the MCU. And they also totally asked forgiveness, apologized, and redeemed Iron Man 3.
4.
The Mitchells versus the Machines. The Mitchells versus the Machines. You've got Sony Animation really just kicking butt right now. They have honed in on this quirky, scribbly, like comic book-esque, just multi-fabrics, multi-textured animation, and I love it. The same kind of animation you see in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, except this is a little bit more cartoonish, a little less comic booky, and yeah, it's just so good. Leading up to this movie, I saw a lot of people posting that this is the hardest they've laughed in a while. I have to agree that that was one of the funniest movies I watched this year. Ever since my daughter was born, I now have this like just extra like vulnerable spot with any father-daughter relationships that I see in movies. And so this was definitely one of those. This movie is centered around an aspiring filmmaker and her relationship with her dad. Super grounded plot set inside the robot apocalypse. So, what more do you want? Animation isn't just for kids.
3.
A lot of you are going to be mad at me that this is number 3 because you know me and you know my love of Spider-Man. Yes, Spider-Man No Way Home is number 3 on my top 3 of 2021. It was absolutely brilliant. Surpassed all of my expectations. Just blew them all out of the water. Could not have asked for a better product than what we got. However, the reason it is not my number 1 is because I'm making these lists in hopes that you will go watch these movies if you haven't already. And I just can't recommend this movie as easily because you need 7 to 9 movies to truly and deeply appreciate every facet of what's happening. As seen in the trailers, I'm not spoiling anything, as seen in the trailers for the movie, there's plenty of callbacks and characters coming from other universes. you to truly understand those characters, you have to go back and watch those movies. That's just tough to do. No one has time for that. And the people that are willing to make time for that have watched those movies hundreds of times and don't need to rewatch them. Very funny. Probably some of the heaviest subject matter that we've seen with Tom Holland, Spider-Man specifically. I will be interested to see how it levels out once the nostalgia is worn off.
2
is Dune. Wah. Chanting in the distance, chanting. Zendaya walking through the sand, giant sandworms. Incredible. This was a must-see in the IMAX. Oh my goodness. Please go see Dune Part 2 in the IMAX. Not the regular theaters, not XD, full IMAX. Okay, maybe XD. It was so worth it. I was like pressed. I was pressed against my seat. So I know several people opted to watch it on HBO and they still loved it. That's fine. I understand that you can still enjoy this movie on the small screen, but I'm telling you, this was intentionally made for the big screen. So if you enjoyed it, even just a little bit, even if you're just like, oh, I liked it, go see the next one in theaters and see if it elevates your experience. I haven't seen the level of craftsmanship on this such a large scale since Lord of the Rings. Let me tell you, Lord of the Rings, the first Lord of the Rings movie came out 20 years ago. So I haven't seen a movie of that caliber since for at least 20 years. And so it's incredible that that in our lifetime we're getting something with that level of gargantuan craftsmanship. Do I connect with this movie on a deep emotional level? No. Which is why it's not number one. If this movie had been a complete one and done film, this would have easily been number one. But it ends on a cliffhanger, not a huge one. It doesn't totally throw you on your back, but it's just enough to where, I mean, literally the last line of this movie is from Zendaya, and she says, "This is only just the beginning." And I just rolled my eyes with a big old smirk on my face because I was like, oh, well, I guess this is the end. And then like the next shot and then boom, credits. And so really on the nose there.
1
Number one movie of this year. Total, like almost the antithesis, the complete opposite of Dune. Pig. Starring Nicolas Cage, about a man whose pig gets stolen and he has to go find it. That's the premise of the movie. The movie is like 90 minutes. It's just leagues shorter than over half the movies on my top 10 list. And it is just almost perfect. I loved it so much. Basically what Pig is a deconstructed John Wick meets Ratatouille. I know that's crazy, but I love both of those movies for completely different reasons, and yet somehow this first-time directorial debut gets Nick Cage and just smashes these two movies together story-wise. You just have to watch it to understand what I'm talking about. Like, I don't want to give anything away. It's such a short... it's just one of those movies that you just let it wash over you. It's just a slow burn. It's not super action-packed. That's why I said deconstructed of John Wick. Nick Cage has no business. You, sir, have no business at this point in your career to give me a career best performance. This is my favorite performance of Nicolas Cage. Alex Wolff did an incredible job. Adam Arkin did an incredible job. The dialogue that they have is not wasteful. When I watch so many movies, even the movies that are in my top 10 list, there's so much exposition. There's so much redundancy of lines for either jokes or that are really there to make sure that you're paying attention. Like, there's no wasted lines. There's no repeated lines. It is a movie made with excruciating intentionality and careful placement. And it was filmed well. The score just kicks me in the gut. I watched this movie 3 times, and all 3 times there's a scene where Nick Cage gets a salted baguette, and there's like no talking in this scene. It's just the score, just the cinematography, and the silent performances, and I have wept every time during that scene. And it's not even like the most emotional scene in the movie, but that's the scene that somehow triggers me. Like, I loved it. I just love it. I love that movie, and there's no going back. Thank you so much for making it all the way through to this point. So I'm going to be posting a video a week, every week of 2022. We're going to do more videos like this. Let me know what your top 10 movies of 2021 are in the comments section below. Happy New Year's.